The night my husband slapped me, 24 people watched him do it. Not one of them stood up. Not his mother. Not his sister. Not the aunt who had hugged me 10 minutes earlier and said she couldn't wait for us to have children. My father-in-law simply lifted his bourbon glass and looked away. I was 9 weeks pregnant. It was our 6th wedding anniversary, and the man who hit me had no idea I was about to discover that the slap wasn't the worst thing he had done to me. It was only the first thing he had done where everyone could see. 6 hours earlier, that same man had stood behind me in our bathroom, fastened a gold bracelet around my wrist, kissed my temple, and told me I deserved something beautiful. That was Grant, my husband, the man I still loved that morning. My name is Julia Mercer. At the time, I was 32 and worked in purchasing for a regional hospital outside Raleigh, North Carolina. It wasn't glamorous. Most of my days involved vendor quotes, equipment orders, supply shortages, and explaining to people why a box of surgical gloves did not magically become cheaper because they wrote urgent in the subject line. I was good with numbers, good with details, good at noticing when something didn't belong. Apparently, I was much better at noticing those things at work than I was inside my own marriage. Grant Whitaker and I had been married 6 years. We lived in a 3-bedroom brick house in Garner, with a narrow backyard, a kitchen we had remodeled ourselves, and a mortgage I had once been proud to sign. Grant worked for his father's business, Whitaker Kitchen and Bath. 3 stores around Wake County. Kitchen remodels, bathroom renovations, cabinetry, countertops. Nothing glamorous enough to make the news. Just a successful family company that had done well for 30 years. Grant's father, Preston Whitaker, liked to say he had built it from absolutely nothing. That wasn't exactly true. His father had given him the original warehouse. His wife, Elaine's parents, had helped with the mortgage during the early years. His uncle had introduced him to half his first contractors. But Preston had repeated his version of the story for so long that everyone eventually accepted it as family history. I had built everything. He had earned everything. And if someone had less than he did, Preston quietly assumed it was because they were less capable. My father never liked him. My father, Tom Mercer, had spent most of his life working as a carpenter. Not luxury homes, not HGTV, decks, porches, school repairs, cabinets, church ramps, the sort of work people notice only when it is done badly. Dad was 63 by then. His knees hurt. 2 fingers on his left hand never fully straightened after an old table saw accident. He lived in the same small white house outside Fuquay-Varina where I grew up. Behind it sat 6 acres of pecan trees, weeds a shallow creek, and the detached workshop he had built with my grandfather. My mother, Susan, had loved that property. She died 4 years before my marriage fell apart. Cancer. Fast at the end. Dad never moved. He said the house was too quiet without her. Then any time I suggested he sell it and move closer to me, he said it was not quiet enough to justify living in a neighborhood with a homeowners association. That was Dad. Preston called him sentimental. Grant used to call him stubborn. I called him when my life went wrong. I just didn't know that yet. Grant gave me the bracelet before we left for dinner. I was checking my reflection in the bathroom mirror, wondering whether anyone could somehow see pregnancy on my face. 9 weeks. No real bump yet. My jeans still fit. The only signs were nausea, exhaustion, and the ability to smell raw onion from another county. Grant appeared behind me holding a narrow white jewelry box. I thought we said no gifts, I said. We did. He smiled. I changed the rules. That smile had gotten me through a lot. Grant had always been easy to like. Brown hair, hazel eyes, quick laugh. The kind of man who remembered waiters' names and could make a cashier smile in 30 seconds. People trusted him. I trusted him most. I opened the box. A slim gold bracelet with a small oval charm. Simple, pretty, exactly the sort of thing I would choose. Grant, 6 years. I took it from the box. Turn around. I did. He fastened it around my wrist. You deserve something nice. For a second, I almost told him then. I had known about the pregnancy for 5 days. 2 home tests, 1 blood test. My first ultrasound was scheduled for Monday. I had bought a tiny pair of white baby socks and hidden them in my purse. I wanted to tell him at dinner. I had imagined everyone cheering. I had imagined his mother crying. I had even imagined Preston behaving like a normal human being for a few minutes. I wanted one perfect memory. Instead, I kissed Grant. Thank you. He squeezed my shoulder, then checked the time. We need to leave. Dad hates when people arrive after him. It was Preston's house. That should tell you something. By the time we reached North Hills, 10 cars already lined the curb. The Whitakers lived in a large brick colonial with white columns, black shutters, and an outdoor kitchen. Preston talked about more than Elaine did. Grant's younger sister Mallory met us at the door. Mallory was 29, recently divorced, and one of the few Whitakers I had always believed genuinely liked me. She hugged me tightly. You look suspiciously good. My heart jumped. Suspicious. You usually walk into these dinners looking like you're calculating whether the downstairs bathroom window is big enough to escape through. I laughed. Maybe I've matured. Absolutely not. She handed me a champagne flute. I took it automatically, then set it down behind a framed photo when she looked away. That night there were 24 people. Family, old friends, a couple of longtime employees, one contractor Preston had known for years, a few people from church. That was another Whitaker habit. Private family celebrations somehow always needed an audience. Preston liked being generous in front of people. He also liked being cruel in front of people. He simply preferred cruelty subtle enough that anyone objecting could be accused of overreacting. Within 20 minutes, he found me near the fireplace. New dress. I looked down. Dark navy. Nothing fancy. Yeah, nice. He paused. You've always known how to make a modest budget look good. There it was. Small. Polished. Deniable. I smiled. Target sends me a Christmas card every year. A couple beside us laughed. Preston didn't. Later, he asked about Dad. How's Tom? Good. Still working in that old shop. Mostly for himself now. Seems like a waste. What does all that land? I looked at him. What about it? That whole corridor is growing. Your father is sitting on 6 acres while builders are buying everything around him. I likes it. Preston smiled. Everybody likes land until they hear the right number. He's heard numbers. And he said no. Preston took a sip of bourbon. Sentimental. Behind me, Grant had gone strangely quiet. I looked at him. I was studying his drink. I waited until Preston moved away. Why does he keep asking about Dad's land? Grant shrugged. He likes property. He seems especially interested in Dad's. Julia. What? Can we not? Not what? Turn every comment Dad makes into an issue. I asked a question. And I answered it. His voice was already irritated. I lowered mine. You could occasionally tell him to stop talking about my family like they're stupid. I doesn't think they're stupid. He just thinks my dad is wasting his life because he doesn't want to sell his backyard. You're doing it again. Doing what? Looking for something to be offended by. That sentence would become very familiar later. At the time, I let it go. That was my specialty, letting things go. Dinner started around 7:30. The long dining table extended into the enclosed patio. Candles, roast chicken, mashed potatoes, wine. Elaine had placed framed photographs from our wedding along the center. One showed Grant and me dancing, one showed his parents, one showed mine. I stared at the photograph of Mom. Pale green dress, big smile. Dad beside her in a rented suit looking like he was terrified someone might ask him to dance. My chest tightened. I thought about the baby. I thought about Mom. I thought about telling Dad tomorrow. For about 30 seconds, I was happy. Then Preston stood. He tapped his glass once. The room quieted immediately. 6 years. He smiled at Grant. My son has always understood the importance of family. I smiled politely. Marriage isn't simple, especially when people come from very different backgrounds. There were a few uncomfortable chuckles. Preston looked directly at me. Grant grew up around business, responsibility, certain expectations. Mallory stopped smiling. Elaine stared at her plate. Julia grew up differently. My father built houses, I said. Preston nodded as though I had helped his point. Hard-working people, absolutely. That absolutely almost made it worse. He continued. One nice thing about marriage is that it gives people opportunities they may not have had otherwise. The room got quieter. I felt Grant's knee touch mine under the table. Not affection. Warning. Preston lifted his glass. Some people marry into opportunities their parents could never have imagined. There it was. No one laughed this time. My face felt hot. Then he smiled. So here's to 6 years. Maybe by the next 6, Julia will finally stop feeling like an outsider and understand what being part of this family really means. A few glasses lifted. My mother's photograph sat beside my plate. I heard her voice in my head. Not literally. A memory. Never make yourself smaller just because somebody else needs more room. I stood. Grant caught my wrist lightly. What are you doing? I have something to say. His eyes narrowed. Now, yes. The room settled. I had planned the announcement differently. The baby socks were still in my purse. I had imagined giving them to Grant. Instead, I put one hand over my stomach. I guess tonight is as good a time as any. Mallory's eyes widened. Elaine leaned forward. Grant stared at me. I smiled. We're having a baby. For 1 second, nobody moved. Then Elaine screamed. Mallory nearly knocked over her chair. Someone started clapping. Then everyone did. Grant stood so quickly his chair scraped the floor. You're serious? I nodded. His whole face changed. Julia. He pulled me against him. For maybe 4 seconds he held me, and I believed his happiness. I still believe it. That is what makes people like Grant difficult to explain. I was not pretending every second of our marriage. I could love me. He could be genuinely overwhelmed by the idea of becoming a father. And he could still make terrible choices. People are inconvenient that way. Elaine was crying. Mallory hugged both of us. Someone shouted congratulations. Then Preston set his glass down. A quiet click. Well, the applause faded. He pressed his napkin to his mouth. I suppose now we just have to hope the Whittaker side is dominant. The room went silent. Elaine whispered Preston. He shrugged. It's a joke. I stared at him. He looked back at me. Hopefully the baby inherits the right instincts. 6 years. 6 years of little comments. Dad's work boots. Mom's country cooking. My job being described as office work, while Grant's job was always explained in detail. 6 years of being introduced as Grant's wife while everyone else got a resume. And now my child. Something inside me became very calm. Actually, I said if this baby gets anything from my side, I hope it gets my father's loyalty. Preston's smile disappeared. My mother's kindness. I looked at Grant. And maybe my ability to know when enough is enough. Julia, Grant warned. I turned back to Preston. Because if being a Whittaker means insulting people and then calling it a joke when they object, I'm not sure it's the inheritance you think it is. No one moved. Preston's face hardened. You might want to be careful. About what? This is my home. And that is my baby you were talking about. Grant stood. Sit down. I looked at him. No, Julia. No. His hand closed around my upper arm. Not hard enough to leave a bruise. Hard enough to make the message clear. Stop. I pulled my arm back. You mean stop embarrassing your father? You're embarrassing yourself. No, Grant. I'm disagreeing with him. I stepped away. He leaned close. Scotch on his breath. You have no idea what you're doing. And here's the part I remember almost frame by frame. I looked at him. At the man who had fastened a gold bracelet around my wrist that afternoon. At the man whose child I was carrying. At the man I still expected somewhere inside myself to become my husband again. I said quietly, I'm doing what I should have done years ago. Then Grant slapped me. Open palm. Right cheek. The sound was shockingly loud. My head turned. My hip hit the chair beside me. For half a second, everything went white at the edges. Then the room came back. 24 people. 24 adults. Elaine covered her mouth. Mallory whispered Grant. Aunt Rebecca stared at her plate. One of Grant's cousins froze with his wine glass halfway to his mouth. The contractor beside Preston looked at the floor. And Preston. I took another drink. Grant was breathing hard. I didn't. I raised my hand. Don't. Julia, don't touch me. Elaine stood. Sweetheart, please, let's all calm down. I looked at her. Calm down. I didn't mean. Your son just hit his pregnant wife. I know, but there shouldn't be a but. She stopped. I looked around the table. That is the part I remember longer than the slap. Everybody suddenly had something fascinating to look at. Napkins, wine, plates, their hands. Nobody looked at me. I picked up my purse. Grant stepped toward me. Where are you going? I stared at him. He actually looked confused. Home. This is your home. No. It was the first true thing I said that night. I walked through the kitchen. A catering woman stood near the back door, maybe 50. Dark hair with a gray streak near her temple. She looked at my face. Then she silently opened the door for me. I never learned her name, but I remember her. Sometimes kindness is not a speech. Sometimes it is simply someone holding open the door everyone else hoped you wouldn't walk through. I sat in my Honda for 11 minutes. The dashboard said 9:42 when I got in. 9:53 when I finally unlocked my phone. My hands would not stop shaking. Through the dining room windows, I could see people moving. The dinner had resumed. Not normally, but it had resumed. That hurt in a way I did not know how to describe. I called Dad. He answered on the second ring. Hey, Jules. Dad. My voice broke. I went silent. I need you. A beat. Where are you? I gave him the address. What happened? Then you just come. Another silence. Are you hurt? I pressed my fingers lightly to my cheek. Yes. His voice changed. Did Grant hurt you? I couldn't answer. Dad didn't make me. I'm getting my keys. That was it. 45 minutes later, his truck pulled into the driveway. Dad stepped out wearing gray sweatpants, an old NC State t-shirt, and brown work boots without socks. I laughed when I saw him. Actually laughed. It hurt my face. He crossed the driveway. Then he saw my cheek. His whole body stopped. Not his feet. Everything. Where is he? Dad. Where? Please don't. I looked at the house. For several seconds, I thought he might go inside. Dad had spent 40 years working with his hands. I could have done real damage. I knew it. I knew it. His jaw moved. Then he inhaled slowly. Nodded once. Okay. He opened the passenger door of his truck. Come home. I almost fell apart at those two words. Not because they were dramatic, because they weren't. Come home. As if I still had somewhere I belonged. Dad's house looked almost exactly as it had when I graduated high school. Small front porch. Pale blue kitchen cabinets. Brown couch Mom bought with a tax refund years ago. Her wooden recipe box beside the stove. Her handwriting still on plastic freezer containers. Chiliad beans after thawing. Apple cake Julia likes extra cinnamon. Chicken stock do not let Tom improve this. Dad had never removed that last label. He gave me my old bedroom. The walls were still light yellow. My high school soccer picture sat on the dresser. He had changed the sheets. That was apparently the only renovation my childhood had received. You need a doctor, he asked. I'm okay. Baby, I don't know. We go tomorrow. I nodded. He started to leave. Dad. He turned. I'm pregnant. I blinked. For real. 9 weeks. His face softened. Then his eyes filled. Your mom would have lost her mind. I laughed through tears. She would already have bought clothes. She'd have bought clothes before you got pregnant. That's true. He looked at my cheek again. The smile disappeared. You sleep. I don't know what I'm going to do. You don't have to know tonight. What if I made everything worse? He leaned against the doorframe. Did you hit him? No. Then you didn't make that part worse. I looked down. Jules. I looked back at him. You don't ever have to stay somewhere just because leaving is embarrassing. Then he turned off the hallway light and went to bed. I lay awake for hours. The bracelet Grant gave me was still around my wrist. I took it off, set it on the dresser, and never wore it again. The doctor said the baby was fine. Tiny. Heartbeat strong. I cried on the exam table. Dad cried later in the parking lot and blamed seasonal allergies. It was October. I didn't argue. We stopped at a diner. I ordered grilled cheese. Dad ordered eggs at noon because time meant very little to him when breakfast was involved. My phone buzzed. Grant. Call me. Then. I'm sorry. Then. You know I would never hurt you. I stared at that one. 20 minutes later. You humiliated me in front of everyone. Then. Dad was wrong too, but you pushed everything too far. There it was. The apology with an exit built into it. Later. Please come home. People are starting to talk. Not. I scared you. Not. I hurt you. People are starting to talk. That was Grant's emergency. Dad pushed the jelly toward me. Bad. I set the phone down. Predictable. He nodded. And ate his eggs. Elaine called that afternoon. Julia. She sounded exhausted. Are you all right? I'm safe. Grant is devastated. Interesting first concern. I should be. I'm not defending him. I waited. He has never done anything like that before. I did Saturday. I know. So now he has. Elaine sighed. Preston feels terrible. No, he doesn't. He said things he shouldn't have said. I insulted my family and my unborn child. I had been drinking. So had Grant. Please, I'm trying to help. No, you're trying to make this smaller. Silence. Then Elaine said, a baby needs both sides of its family. I looked out Dad's kitchen window toward the workshop. No. What? A baby needs safe people. Grant is the father. And I'm the mother. You're emotional right now. The sentence was soft, almost kind. That made it worse. I hung up. A minute later, Mallory texted, I'm so sorry. Then, I should have done something. Then, I froze. Then, I hate that I froze. I stared at that one. I believed her. And for a while, I would keep believing her. Dad knocked once on my bedroom door every morning. Never came in. Just set something outside and walked away. Ginger tea. Toast. Crackers. One morning, a banana appeared with a sticky note. Google says potassium. I laughed for the first time in days. That was how Dad took care of people. He never stood in the doorway demanding to know whether you appreciated him. He just left the banana. A few days later, Grant came to the house. No warning. I opened the front door and found him standing on the porch with white roses. My favorite. That's another thing people don't tell you. A person can remember your favorite flower and still become someone you are afraid of. Grant looked awful. Dark circles. Wrinkled shirt. No jacket. For one dangerous second, my heart softened. Hi, he said. I didn't answer. Then I come in? No. Julia. No. I looked toward the driveway. Is Tom here? Yes. His jaw tightened slightly. I'm not here to fight. Good. I'm here to apologize. You can apologize from there. He swallowed. I should never have touched you. No. I lost control. Yes. I told Dad he was wrong. That surprised me. What? I told him he never gets to speak about you or the baby like that again. I stared at him. Really? Yes. For one second, I wanted to believe we had reached the version of the story where Grant woke up. He held out the roses. I love you. My eyes filled. I love you too. It slipped out before I could stop it. Grant's face changed. Hope. And I hated how much seeing that hope hurt me. He stepped closer. We can fix this. I don't know. Yes, we can. I touched my hand. I let him. For maybe 3 seconds. Then something occurred to me. Grant. Yeah, what is the $96,000 loan? His hand stopped. I watched his face. Just half a second. But there it was. What loan? The one against our house. Silence. I pulled my hand away. I looked past me. It's temporary. My stomach dropped. You knew. Of course I knew. You signed my name. Julia, you signed my name. I handled paperwork. That isn't what I asked. It was a company emergency. So you did. He exhaled sharply. Dad's Holly Springs showroom ran over budget. And we needed short-term cash. We, my dad and me. I stared at him. You borrowed against our house. I invested in our future. Our future. The company is going to be mine one day. My grandmother put $74,000 into that house. And you have benefited from my family for 6 years too. I actually took a step backward. I immediately knew he had gone too far. That came out wrong. No, Julia. No, I think that came out exactly right. You know what I mean. I don't think I ever did. He lowered his voice. You're treating this like I stole money from you. You used my name without telling me. Because you would have panicked. I stared at him. There it was. Not because he forgot to tell me. Not because he made a mistake. Because he had decided what I was allowed to know. Grant continued. I was going to pay it back before you ever needed to worry about it. Needed. Julia stopped picking apart every word. You signed my name. Stop saying it like that. How should I say it? He rubbed his face. This is what you do. You get emotional, take one fact and turn it into proof that everybody is against you. The porch suddenly felt cold. I heard Dad moving somewhere inside the house. Grant kept talking. I came here to fix this. No, you came here because you thought flowers would fix this. That's not fair. Why didn't your father borrow against his own house? Silence. Grant. He has more obligations. I laughed once. You mean he had more to lose? His expression hardened. Do you really want our daughter growing up in your dad's little house while you throw away everything I've built for us? My body went completely still. Our daughter. You know what I mean. No, say it again. Julia. You think my father's house isn't good enough for your child. I think I can give our baby a future. And my father can't. I didn't say that. You just did. Grant stepped closer. Your dad can give you a spare bedroom. He pointed toward the house. I can give our child stability. I looked at the roses in his hand. A few minutes earlier, I had almost taken them, almost let him inside, almost let the word love make the last week smaller. Then I understood. I'm not coming home. His face changed. Don't do this. I'm not coming home. We're married. I know. We're having a baby. I know. You're acting like a teenager who ran back to Daddy because her feelings got hurt. Dad's voice came from behind me. That's enough. Grant froze. Dad stood in the hallway wearing a flannel shirt dusted with sawdust. Grant looked embarrassed. Tom, this is between me and my wife. Dad nodded. Then talk to your wife like she's your wife. Grant's face reddened. I apologized. Dad looked at him. Then learn what sorry sounds like. Dad, I said. I looked at me. I shook my head. He stepped back. Grant stared at me. I'm giving you 1 week. For what? To come home. And if I don't, his face went flat. Then don't blame me when this gets ugly. He set the roses on the porch. Then he left. Dad picked them up. You want these? No. Good roses. Dad. Waste is waste. The next morning, I found the petals in Mom's compost pile. That evening, I finally showed Dad the loan notice. He read it slowly, then set it down. Preston came here in June. I looked up. What? About the land. My chest tightened. What about it? I wanted to buy the back 4 acres. For what? Warehouse, distribution, something for the Holly Springs store. Did you tell him no? Yep. How much? 380,000. I stared at him. That's a lot of money. Yep. And you said no. Yep. Why? Dad shrugged. I don't want to sell it. That was Dad. So why didn't you tell me? I hesitated. And suddenly I knew. Grant was here. Dad looked at me. Yes. My hands went cold. I came with Preston. Yes. When? June. 3 months before our anniversary. And Grant never told me. No. Did he say why? Said he wanted to talk to you himself. I didn't. Dad looked guilty. I figured it was dead. I sat back. So my husband sat in this kitchen while his father tried to buy your land. Yes. Then later borrowed almost 100,000 against our house to save the same expansion. Looks like it. I felt sick. Dad poured me water. Drink. I'm not thirsty. Drink anyway. I did. That was when I started looking. Not like a detective, like a wife who had finally stopped accepting boring explanations. Our joint account showed several transfers to Whitaker Kitchen and Bath. I didn't care about every dollar. One fact mattered. Within 3 days of that $96,000 loan funding, $80,000 went directly to the family business. That was enough. My grandmother's money had helped build the house. Grant had quietly used the house to keep his father's expansion alive. And he had never asked me. Then I found an email. Not hacked. Not stolen. A copy had automatically saved to an old shared household folder connected to our printer. The subject line, Mercer Property. Grant to Preston. Tom still won't move. Julia doesn't know we met with him. Leave her out of it for now. Preston replied. He'll come around when she understands what's at stake. You married into that family. Use the relationship. Grant's answer was 3 words. I'm working on her. I read them over and over. I'm working on her. Not talking to her. Not convincing her. Working on her. Like I was a door that needed prying open. Like Dad was something attached to me that Grant could eventually access. Dad found me sitting at the kitchen table. You okay? No, I showed him. He read the messages. His face went still. Then he walked to the sink. I followed him. Dad, I should have told you. Told me what? Preston asked about the land before the wedding too. I stared at him. What? Once. When? Couple months before. Did Grant know? I don't know. Why didn't you tell me? Dad looked ashamed. Because I thought Preston was Preston and Grant was Grant. I almost laughed. That was exactly what I had spent 6 years telling myself. Dad continued. Grant came here that same week to ask permission to marry you. I closed my eyes. He said he loved that you weren't like his family. My throat tightened. I believed him. So did I. Dad looked down. I could have warned you. No. Yes. I would have defended him. Dad looked at me. We both knew it. I was in love. Yeah. And you wanted me happy. Yeah. That isn't the same as causing this. He nodded. But I knew he would carry some of the guilt anyway. Parents do that. Then Grant changed strategies. He stopped asking me to come home. He started telling other people why I had left. My supervisor, Denise Carter, called me into her office Monday morning. Close the door. My stomach dropped. She folded her hands. Your husband called. What did he say? He said he was worried about you. Of course. He said pregnancy has been difficult. He has not attended a single appointment. He said you've become paranoid. I stared at her. He said you left home unexpectedly and started accusing him and his family of financial misconduct. Did he say I'm unstable? Denise paused. Not directly. I didn't need to. What did you tell him? That your performance at work is excellent and your personal life is not something I discuss with your spouse. I let out a breath. Thank you. She leaned back. I'm going to tell you something as your supervisor. I waited. Document anything involving this office. Then she softened. And I'm going to tell you something as a woman who has lived long enough to recognize certain men. I looked at her. People who are actually worried about you usually call you first. That afternoon, my phone filled with messages. Aunt Carol. A cousin I barely spoke to. Mom's old church friend. Grant told us you're struggling. We're praying for you. Please think about the baby. Pregnancy hormones are no joke. Marriage is hard. Then I opened Facebook. Grant had posted a black and white wedding photo. Sometimes loving someone means giving them space while they work through something painful. Please keep my wife and our baby in your prayers. I won't discuss private matters publicly, but family means fighting for people even when they push you away. 87 comments. Praying for you, brother. Stay strong. Protect that baby. Hormones can make women do things they regret. One comment stopped me. A friend of Preston's wrote, a father has rights too. Don't let anyone use that child against you. I almost replied. My fingers moved before my brain did. I typed. Tell them why I actually left Grant. I stared at it. My thumb hovered over post. Then I heard Dad behind me. Don't. I turned. He had come into the kitchen for coffee. You don't even know what I wrote. No. How do you know I shouldn't send it? Your face. I deleted the comment. 5 minutes later, I cried in the bathroom. Not because Dad had stopped me, because some part of me had wanted to burn Grant's reputation down in public. I was angry. I was pregnant. I was tired of people praying for the man who hit me. I was not perfectly calm. I was not always wise. I wanted to scream. But screaming online would have given Grant exactly what he needed. So I didn't. Kelsey came to the hospital cafeteria that afternoon. Kelsey Munro had been my friend since college. She managed the accounting office for a plumbing company, had 2 children, one ex-husband, and absolutely no patience for nonsense. I showed her Grant's post. She read it. Oh, I hate him. I almost commented. Glad you didn't. Dad stopped me. I like your dad. I likes you too. He has excellent judgment. She handed my phone back. This isn't about getting you home anymore. I know. He's making sure that when you tell people what he did, they already have a reason not to believe you. I know. Kelsey stared at me. You keep saying that very calmly. I'm not calm. Good. What? You should be angry. I am. Just don't spend it all at once. I smiled. You and Dad are becoming annoyingly similar. That is the nicest thing you've ever said to me. Mallory called that evening. She was crying before I finished saying hello. I saw Grant's post. I said nothing. It's disgusting. I thinks it's subtle. He called me too. What did he say? That he's worried about your mental state. I closed my eyes. What did you say? That if he cared about your mental state, he probably shouldn't have slapped you. I laughed despite myself. Mallory started crying harder. I should have stood up that night. Yes, I know. I keep seeing it. So do I. I was scared. Of Grant. Of Dad. That made sense. Preston helped pay for Mallory's condo after her divorce. He had paid for her wedding. He still covered several expenses she couldn't comfortably afford. The Whitakers called that generosity. I was beginning to understand it differently. Mallory whispered, I love you, Julia. I closed my eyes. I love you too. Then I see you? I hesitated. Yes. We met at a coffee shop 2 days later. Mallory brought me yellow baby booties. Hand kinnet. Too early. I burst into tears. She did too. No. I saw them and she shrugged. We hugged. For almost an hour, she was exactly the person I had always thought she was. She told me Preston had screamed at Grant after I left. Not because of the slap, because Grant had made the family look bad. She told me Elaine had barely spoken to either of them for days. She admitted Dad had always scared her. He gives things, she said, and then you spend years remembering you owe him. I listened. For the first time, I felt like someone inside that family was telling me the truth. Near the end, she said carefully, Grant told me there's some confusion about the house. I looked at her. I told you that. Just that there's a loan. I nodded slowly. Mallory looked uncomfortable. I'm not asking for details. Okay. I just don't want Dad to turn this into something worse. I don't either. Have you talked to anyone? I let out a tired breath. Kelsey. I mean professionally. I looked at my tea. I barely know what I'm doing, Mal. That part was true. I'm exhausted. She reached across the table. I'm sorry. I might just sell the house eventually and get away from all of them. Her shoulders loosened. That might be healthiest. For everyone. She nodded. For everyone. I left believing Mallory had asked because she was scared. Not because she was gathering information. That mattered later. 3 days later, Preston texted me directly. He had never texted me more than happy birthday or dinner times before. Julia, this has gone far enough. You are carrying my grandchild, and you need to think about what stability actually means. Tom's property may feel sentimental, but sentiment does not pay for a child's future. Grant can provide the life you and the baby need if you stop treating every practical decision as a personal attack. I read it twice. Then a second message came. Your father will not be around forever. That one made something inside me go cold. Not because it was technically false. Dad was 63 and taking heart medication he had only recently admitted he needed. Because Preston had found the one fear he knew would hurt me. And he used it. I did not answer. An hour later, Grant texted, Please ignore Dad. He's trying to help. Then, but he isn't wrong about security. I set the phone down. That was the point when I stopped wondering whether Grant understood what his father was doing. I did. A week later, I discovered how Grant kept knowing things I had never told him. Nothing sophisticated, no microphone, no hidden camera, just carelessness. Dad kept an old MacBook in the spare bedroom. Grant had used it months earlier when his laptop died during a visit. One night I opened it to print an insurance form. A notification appeared. Messages syncing. Grant's account was still logged in. I almost closed it immediately. Then Mallory's name appeared. A new message. Grant. Did she say anything else? Mallory. Not much. She says she's exhausted and might sell the house. My stomach dropped. Another message. Grant. Good, keep it that way. Mallory. I hate doing this. Grant. Then stop taking Dad's money. I stopped breathing. Mallory. That's not fair. Grant. Neither is losing a 400K site because Julia filled Tom's head with ideas. Mallory. Tom never wanted to sell. Grant. He will when Julia needs security for the baby. Then, once she comes home, I can get this under control. I sat completely still. Mallory's baby booties were on the dresser behind me. Yellow, tiny, sweet. For a moment that hurt more than Grant. I had trusted her after everything. Not because I was stupid. Because I wanted one person in that family to be real. Another message came. Mallory, you hit her. Grant. I know. Mallory, she's scared of you. Grant, she's confused and Dad keeps feeding it. Once she's home, she'll calm down. Mallory, I don't think you understand what you did. Grant, I understand exactly what I did. I lost my temper once. I'm not letting one bad minute destroy my family. One bad minute. That was what my face had become to him. A bad minute. I took photographs of the screen with my phone. Then I logged Grant out. Changed every shared password I could think of. 4 minutes later, Grant called. I let it ring. Now I knew. The next morning, Mallory called. I answered. Hey, she said carefully. Hey, Grant is freaking out about some account. Really? I think something got logged out. I wouldn't know. Silence. Mallory knew. I knew she knew. Neither of us said it. Then she whispered. Julia. I closed my eyes. Not yet, Mallory. She started crying. I'm sorry. Not yet. I didn't know he was reading. I said not yet. She stopped. For once she respected the boundary. Okay, I hung up. I sat on Dad's porch for almost an hour. That betrayal hurt. Not because Mallory was worse than Grant. Because I had let myself hope. By November, my pregnancy was starting to show. One afternoon, Dad and I were at Food Lion arguing over cereal when I felt something. A flutter. I stopped walking. Dad took 3 more steps, then turned. What? I put my hand on my stomach. Wait. His face changed. What's wrong? Nothing. Another flutter. Oh, what? I think she moved. Sha, I don't know, the baby. Dad slowly reached his hand toward my stomach, then stopped. I nodded. He put his palm against the small curve. Nothing. He waited. Still nothing. Already ignoring me. Definitely related to you. Then the baby moved again. Dad's eyes widened. Oh, just that. Oh, his eyes filled. Mine did too. A little boy walking past with his mother pointed at Dad. Why's that man crying? Dad wiped his face. Allergies. I laughed. In the cereal aisle, very aggressive building. That moment changed something in me. I had spent weeks thinking the story was about Grant, about beating him, exposing him, escaping him. It wasn't. It was about what kind of world this child would call normal. I suddenly knew I would never go back. Not because I had stopped loving Grant completely, because love was no longer the most important thing in the decision. Elaine invited me to Thanksgiving. I said no. She called again. No. For the baby. Still no. Then she said something that made me pause. Most of the people from your anniversary dinner will be here. I looked at the papers on Dad's table. The loan notice. The email. Photographs of Grant's messages. The Facebook post. 24 people had watched him hit me. Most of them had heard only Grant's version afterward. When? 2:30. I'll come. Elaine exhaled. Oh, thank God. I'm bringing Dad. Silence. Then, of course. Dad looked up from his crossword after I hung up. You're doing what? Thanksgiving. No, I'm 32. Congratulations. I need to go. You don't need turkey that badly. I need them all in the same room. He stared at me. What are you planning? Nothing crazy. That sentence has never improved a Father's Day. I almost smiled. I'm not going there to scream. Good. I'm not taking a stack of papers. Better. I just want them to hear the same truth at the same time. Dad folded his newspaper. What if Grant gets angry? I leave. What if Preston gets angry? I definitely leave. What if I get angry? You sit on your hands. He grunted. Eventually he agreed. Kelsey insisted on being nearby. By nearby, she meant parked 2 blocks away with coffee beef jerky and what she described as reasonable getaway energy. I told her she was dramatic. She reminded me that my husband had slapped me at the last dinner. Fair. Thanksgiving morning was cold and clear. I wore a dark green sweater dress, flat boots, Mom's small silver earrings, no wedding ring. I had removed it weeks before. Dad wore khakis and a blue shirt Mom had bought him. You look nice, I said. I look like a substitute teacher. Mom picked that shirt. That explains why the collar is trying to kill me. We drove in silence for most of the trip. Near Carrie, Dad turned the radio off. You don't have to prove anything today. I know. You already left. I know. That was the hard part. Then why am I shaking? Dad looked out the windshield. Because you remember what happened last time. That was all. No quote. No speech. Just truth. There were 16 cars outside Preston's house. The moment we entered, conversation slowed. Aunt Rebecca hugged me too long. Grant's cousin said, you look healthy in the tone people use when they expected you to arrive wearing a hospital bracelet. Elaine hugged me. Then Dad. She looked thinner, tired. Preston remained near the fireplace. He nodded once. No apology. Mallory was in the kitchen. When she saw me, her face went pale. Julia. Hi. Her eyes went to my stomach, then my bare hand. I didn't know you were coming. I know. She looked like she wanted to say something. I walked past her. Then Grant appeared. I looked good. That irritated me more than it should have. Fresh haircut. Navy sweater. Calm. He smiled. I'm glad you came. I bet. His eyes moved to Dad. Tom. Dad nodded. Grant. No handshake. Grant looked at my stomach. How are you feeling? Fine. And the baby? Fine. His face softened. Real concern. I hated that part of him still had access to something in me. He lowered his voice. Then we talk after dinner? Yes. His shoulders relaxed. I thought I was coming back. I could see it. Then he smiled. Dad's willing to let everything go. I almost laughed. How generous. He understands things got out of hand. I said that. Not exactly. Of course. Grant leaned closer. We can fix this. I looked at him. No. His smile faded. We're going to finish it. Dinner began around 2:30. 26 people. Almost the same number as our anniversary. Dad sat beside me. Grant across. Preston at the head. Turkey. Stuffing. Sweet potatoes. Wine. Ordinary Thanksgiving conversation tried desperately to survive. Football. Weather. College applications. Someone's flight delay. Then Preston stood. Of course he did. Before dessert, Elaine closed her eyes. He lifted his glass. We've had a difficult few months. Several people glanced at me. But families survive difficult seasons when people remember what matters. I felt Dad shift beside me. I touched his wrist. Preston continued. Marriage is difficult. Grant looked at me. Pregnancy can be emotional. There it was. And sometimes misunderstandings become larger than they need to be. I stood. Grant's face changed. Julia. I looked at Preston. No. His glass lowered. No, we are not calling this a misunderstanding. Sit down, Grant said quietly. Same words. Different dinner. Different Julia. No. The room went silent. I looked around. Since Grant has spent the last 2 months telling people, I'm emotional, confused, paranoid, and overwhelmed by pregnancy, I think I should probably explain why I actually left. Elaine whispered. Julia, please. You invited me. She said nothing. I took one piece of paper from my purse. 1. This is a loan against the house Grant and I bought 6 years ago. Grant stood. Don't do this. I continued. My grandmother put $74,000 of her savings into that house. Aunt Rebecca frowned. 3 days after this loan was opened, $80,000 went into Whitaker Kitchen and Bath. Several people looked at Preston. Grant said, You're deliberately making that sound. I didn't know the loan existed. Silence. I didn't agree to it. Someone at the far end whispered, What? Grant's face tightened. It was temporary. I looked at him. You signed my name. The room changed. Not movie dramatic. Just chairs shifting, eyes lifting. People suddenly paying attention differently. Grant shook his head. That isn't what happened. Then tell them. Julia. Tell them. Preston interrupted. The money went into the business. Grant was protecting his family's future. Dad laughed once. Preston turned. What's funny? Dad leaned back. Every time you take something from somebody, you call it their future. Preston's jaw tightened. This has nothing to do with you. Dad looked at him. You tried to buy my land. Several people turned. Grant closed his eyes. Dad continued. Twice. Preston said, I made you an offer. You brought my son-in-law to my kitchen and asked him to help convince my daughter. Grant snapped. That isn't what happened. I looked at him. Then what does I'm working on her mean? Grant went silent. Preston looked sharply at him. What? I pulled out my phone. Not a folder. Not a stack. Just the message. I read. Tom still won't move. Julia doesn't know we met with him. Leave her out of it for now. Then Preston's response. You married into that family. Use the relationship. Nobody spoke. Then Grant's. I'm working on her. Elaine looked at Preston. Did you write that? Preston's face hardened. This is private business correspondence. I actually laughed. That's your answer. You have no idea how much money was tied up in that project. No, Preston. That's exactly the problem. I looked around the table. For 6 years, this family treated me like I should be grateful Grant married me. Preston opened his mouth. I kept going. You might have jokes about my father's work. I pointed toward Dad. That man built cabinets before your second showroom existed. Dad looked uncomfortable. He cared for my mother while she died. My throat tightened. Never once made me feel like loving me created a debt. The room was silent. I looked at Grant. Your son did. Grant's face reddened. That is not fair. Then why did you tell Mallory to keep checking on me? Mallory froze. Grant's head snapped toward her. Julia. Mallory whispered. Oh God. I looked at her. Her eyes were already wet. I had not planned to expose her. Not fully. I didn't need to. I read only Grant's message. Keep checking on her. Don't push the loan. Then, once she comes home, I can get this under control. Elaine covered her mouth. Grant stepped toward me. Those messages were private. Dad stood. Immediately. So did Grant's cousin beside him, then Aunt Rebecca's husband. 3 chairs scraped backward. Grant stopped. The sound hit me harder than I expected. At our anniversary dinner, nobody moved. Now people were standing. Not because I was helpless, because they had finally decided silence was a choice. Grant looked around. The room had changed. Mallory stood too. Grant. I glared at her. Don't. She was crying. No. Mallory. No. Preston slammed his hand against the table. Everybody sit down. Nobody did. Mallory looked at me. I told him what you said at coffee. I swallowed. I know. I told myself I was protecting the family. Grant snapped. Stop talking. Mallory turned on him. You hit her. I know that. You called her boss. She was unstable. No, she wasn't. You don't know. I know I helped you make her think I was her friend, so you could find out what she knew. Her voice cracked. And I hate myself for it. Preston shouted. Mallory. She looked at her father. I'm done being scared every time you say my name like that. Preston stared at her. You ungrateful. Enough. Elaine. Barely louder than normal. But everyone heard. Preston turned. What? Elaine was still seated. Her hands trembled. Enough. For once, Preston had no immediate answer. I looked at Grant. I looked smaller now. Not because I had destroyed him. Because everyone was finally in the same room. His mother knew one version. Mallory knew another. Dad knew about the land. I knew about the money. Grant had survived by keeping every truth separate. Now they were sitting beside each other. Grant looked at me. Julia. My name sounded different. Not a warning. A plea. I love you. My eyes burned. I believe you did. His face changed. Did. Maybe you still do. Then come home. No. We can work on this. No. We have a child coming. I put one hand over my stomach. Yes. Then what do you want? There it was. The question Preston's entire family understood. What do you want? Money. House. Apology. Position. What will make the problem go away? I looked at Grant. Nothing. I blinked. What? Nothing from you. That makes no sense. It makes perfect sense. I looked at Preston. That's what none of you understand. I turned back to Grant. You can't buy your way out of this. I never said. You hit me. I went silent. You used our house without telling me. Silence. You helped your father plan around my dad's land. Silence. You called my employer and relatives so that if I told the truth, people would question whether pregnancy had made me crazy. His eyes dropped. And when your sister told you I was scared, you didn't ask how to make me feel safe. I looked at Mallory. You said once I came home you could get me under control. Grant's eyes filled. I didn't mean. I know exactly what you meant. I took one step toward me. Dad moved. Grant stopped again. Then Dad said the line that finally broke whatever argument Grant still had left. I don't understand your marriage. Grant looked at him. Dad's voice stayed calm. But I understand her face when I picked her up. Silence. That was enough for me. Grant looked down. I picked up my purse. Preston pointed toward me. You think walking away makes you better than us? I turned. No. I looked at him. I spent 6 years thinking you were better than me. That shut him up. I thought your house meant something. I glanced around the room. Your stores. Your dinners. The way people laughed before they knew whether your jokes were funny. Nobody moved. I thought because my dad wore work boots and Grant wore expensive shoes, maybe your family knew something mine didn't. Dad muttered. Loafers are stupid shoes. A few people laughed despite themselves. Even I did. Then I looked at Preston. I was wrong. His face hardened. You poisoned this family. No. I shook my head. I stopped protecting the poison. Elaine started crying. Mallory covered her mouth. Grant sat down. Not dramatically. He simply seemed tired. I looked around the table. I didn't come here to ruin Thanksgiving. Preston laughed bitterly. Could have fooled me. I came because the last time something happened at this table, everybody walked away with a different version. I looked at the people who had watched Grant hit me. So this time I wanted everyone to hear the same story at the same time. No one spoke. No whispers. I looked at Mallory. No reports back. Then Grant. No prayer posts about my mental health. Then Preston. And no more telling me I don't understand your family. I picked up my coat. I understand it now. Elaine whispered. Julia. I stopped. Her face was wet. I'm sorry. No explanation. No but. Just that. I believed her. But believing an apology does not mean you owe immediate forgiveness. Thank you. Mallory looked at me. Then I call you? Not yet. She nodded. That mattered. Grant stood. What about the baby? Everyone heard him. I turned. You can decide what kind of father you become. His face softened desperately. So I can see her. We don't know if it's a her. You know what I mean? Yes. I looked at him. But you will never use this child to make me come back to you. I wouldn't. You already tried. He had no answer. Dad opened the front door. Cold November air came into the foyer. 6 weeks earlier, I had left that house shaking so badly I could barely unlock my car. This time, I walked out slowly. Dad beside me, one hand resting over my baby. Nobody had to rescue me. That was the difference. Kelsey was waiting at a gas station 2 blocks away. She jumped out when she saw us. Well, I rolled down the window. Your getaway services were unnecessary. She looked disappointed. I bought beef jerky. Dad leaned across me. We'll take it. She handed him the bag. Then looked at me. You okay? I actually thought about the answer. Yes. Real yes. Real yes. For the first time in weeks. The fallout was quieter than people expect revenge to be. There were no dramatic arrests, no television crews, no sudden collapse of an empire. Real families fall apart much more slowly. The house in Garner eventually went up for sale. The loan had to be untangled. Whitaker Kitchen and Bath survived, but the Holly Springs expansion did not. Preston sold one older location and cut staff. Grant lost his position at the company before Christmas. Preston blamed Grant for mishandling the loan. Grant blamed Preston for pushing the expansion. It took Grant losing his father's approval to discover that Preston's loyalty had conditions too. Elaine left the North Hills house for several months and stayed with her sister. Mallory sold the condo Preston had been helping her pay for and moved into a smaller apartment. 3 weeks after Thanksgiving, she sent me one message. I was scared of losing what Dad gave me, so I helped Grant scare you into losing yourself. I'm sorry. You don't owe me forgiveness. I didn't answer, but I didn't delete it. I moved into a small duplex in Cary in January. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, brown laminate kitchen counters, a refrigerator that clicked every 20 minutes. I loved it. Dad hated the cabinets. That one's crooked. It's fine. It's not. No one can see it. I can. He fixed every cabinet door before I finished unpacking. Kelsey helped paint the second bedroom a soft blue-green. Dad built a small maple bookshelf. On the back, where he clearly thought I wouldn't see it, he had written in pencil, "For the next Mercer who needs somewhere solid to stand." I cried in the empty nursery for 10 minutes. When Dad came back inside, I pretended I hadn't seen it. He pretended not to notice my face. That was our language. Grant and I met at a coffee shop in February. Public place. I looked older, less polished. No expensive watch. His shirt was slightly wrinkled. He looked at my stomach. Do you know what? Boy or girl? Girl. His face broke. A girl. I nodded. He started crying. So did I. Grief is strange. I did not want him back. But we had once imagined that moment together. He wiped his face. I've been seeing someone. I stiffened. He realized. A therapist. Oh, she says I learned more from Dad than I realized. That seems possible. She says that isn't an excuse. That also seems possible. I looked down. I thought if I took over the company, made more money, built something bigger than he did, I'd be different from him. I waited. Grant laughed bitterly. I became him. I looked at him. Knowing that doesn't undo what you did. I know. You signed my name. I know. You let him use me. I know. You told people I was unstable. His eyes closed. I know. And after you hit me, you were more angry that I left than horrified that you hit me. He covered his face. That one hurt him. Good. Not because I wanted revenge. Because some truths should hurt. After a long silence, Grant said, I'm sorry. Nothing came after it. No but. No Dad. No alcohol. No pregnancy hormones. Just, I'm sorry. I nodded. I believe you. Hope flashed across his face. I stopped it gently. Believing your apology does not mean returning to the person who needed to make it. He cried again. So did I. Then we talked about our daughter. Not our marriage. Our daughter. That was the beginning of a different relationship, one built on boundaries instead of promises. My father scared me that winter. Chest pain, one night in the hospital, no heart attack, medication changes, a cardiologist who told him to stop pretending 63 was 38. Dad complained about the hospital coffee until I knew he was probably going to be fine. The morning he was discharged, he looked at my stomach. You okay? Yes. He narrowed his eyes. I smiled. Actual. He nodded. That's my girl. 3 words. That's my girl. I had received awards, promotions, a college degree, wedding speeches. Nothing ever felt quite like those 3 words. Maybe because Dad wasn't proud that I had won. I was proud that I had come back to myself. My daughter was born on April 11th, 7 pounds 2 ounces, dark hair, very strong opinions. We named her June Susan Mercer. June for my grandmother, whose savings helped put something solid beneath me. Susan for my mother, who never got to meet her. Grant came to the hospital. So did Dad. Kelsey practically moved in. Elaine waited until I invited her. Mallory did not ask to come. She sent flowers and a card. I appreciated that more than she probably knew. Grant held June near the hospital window. He looked terrified. Good. Parents should be a little terrified. It means they understand that another person's heart has been placed in their hands. He whispered something to her. Later I asked what he had said. He hesitated. I told her I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to become somebody she never has to be afraid of. I looked at him. Some months I believe he can. Other months I only believe the boundaries. For now that is enough. Dad held June differently, like she had always belonged there. He sat in the hospital chair with her against his chest. She wrapped 4 tiny fingers around his crooked index finger. Dad's mouth trembled. I smiled. Allergies. He stared out the window. Hospital dust. Very aggressive. Terrible place. I laughed. And looking at him, I finally understood why Preston and Dad had always seemed like opposite kinds of men. Preston thought legacy was what you owned. Stores, property, a family name on a building. Dad never talked about legacy. He just showed up. By June's first birthday, my life looked nothing like the one I had expected. We held the party in my backyard. 17 people, paper plates, plastic cups. Kelsey made a cake that leaned so badly to the left we had to turn it in photographs. Dad grilled hamburgers. Grant came. Elaine came. After months of slow, careful conversations, Mallory came too. Preston did not. That was intentional. There were no crystal glasses, no speeches about bloodlines. No one cared what anybody's father did for a living. June smashed blue icing into her hair. Grant laughed. Elaine cried. Kelsey threatened anyone who tried to clean the baby before she finished taking pictures. For a strange moment, our broken collection of people almost felt like a family. Not restored. Different. That mattered. Families do not always heal by becoming what they were before. Sometimes what they were before was the problem. At 3 in the afternoon, Dad tapped his plastic cup with a fork. I groaned immediately. No. He ignored me. Just one thing. Everyone looked at him. Dad hated speeches. That made me nervous. He looked at June in her high chair. Kids won. People laughed. He continued. She's got people here from a lot of different places. His eyes moved around the table. Grant, Elaine, Mallory, Kelsey, me. Some of us messed up. Grant looked down. Some of us showed up late. Elaine wiped her eyes. Some of us are still figuring things out. Dad shrugged. I definitely am. More laughter. Then he looked at me. But she should know one thing. His voice became rough. Nobody at this table has to earn their chair. The yard went silent. My eyes filled. A year earlier, I had sat at another table. Candles, wine, expensive plates. A man at the head explaining what his last name was worth. That night, I had spent every second trying to prove I belonged. This table was cheaper. Crooked cake, paper plates, Dad in cargo shorts. It was better, because he was right. Nobody had to earn their chair. Not June. Not me. Not even the people who had failed me, and were now learning that being allowed back into my life required respect, not ownership. For years, I thought dignity was something other people gave you. A place at the table, approval, a good marriage, a respected last name. I was wrong. Dignity was the part of me that survived when those things disappeared. And legacy. Legacy was simpler than Preston ever understood. Legacy is the behavior your children grow up believing is normal. My daughter will never grow up believing humiliation is the price of belonging. She will never hear me tell her that money gives someone the right to control her. She will never watch me call violence one bad night just to keep a family photograph intact. She will know people can change. She will also know their change is not her responsibility. And she will know exactly where she comes from. A grandmother who saved carefully. A mother whose freezer labels still make us laugh. A carpenter with bad knees who drove across Raleigh in sweatpants because his daughter said, "I need you." And me. A woman who stayed too long, trusted too much, got scared, went home, and eventually learned the difference between being wanted at somebody else's table and knowing she could build her own. So let me ask you, if 24 people watched your husband slap you while you were pregnant and nobody moved, could you ever trust that family again? And if the man you loved later admitted he had used your home, your father, and even your unborn child to keep control of you, would an apology ever be enough? Or would you do what I finally did? Get up from the table they told you to be grateful for and build one where nobody has to earn their chair.